Hello, our topic is marriage and the Navamsa chart. When I analyze a romantic relationship or a marriage relationship, suppose I'm doing the chart of a husband and wife, I always calculate the Navamsa chart of both people, of both the husband and the wife, and then I compare the Navamsa charts to each other. And I'm going to show you how I do this using the example of Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. Using their charts is very nice for two reasons. Number one, we have AA accuracy for both of them, meaning their birth time is from a birth certificate or birth record. And number two, they are public people, so we have some biographical information about them that we can all refer to. So people like this are good for illustrating ideas. So I calculate the Navamsa chart of both individuals and I compare them, and I'm especially interested in aspects to Venus in these Navamsa charts. The aspects between the charts are sometimes called synastry aspects between the charts. Well, this may be sounding a little abstract, so let me bring up the charts so you can see what I'm talking about. Two additional points before I start showing this to you. Number one is terminology. Another term for Navamsa chart is 9th Harmonic. They're the same exact thing. Navamsa chart is the term used in Vedic astrology. In modern Western astrology, they're known as 9th Harmonic charts. And I will be using what we call vibrational astrology in this tutorial video, which is a very modern system. But it's based on ideas that are very similar to Vedic astrology. So I'm not going to interpret with the rules of Vedic astrology, but they're very, very similar in some ways to the Vedic ideas. Anyway, it goes by two names, Navamsa chart and 9th Harmonic chart. Sometimes I may call them Navamsa charts, sometimes I may call them 9th Harmonic charts. It's the same exact thing. And I'm going to analyze the relationship of Brad and Angelina in a little more detail, and in doing that I'll look at a few other harmonic charts. And as we get into it, we'll see why, but I will be looking at their 17th harmonic charts, the 8th harmonic chart of Angelina, and the 7th harmonic chart of Brad as I go into some more detail. Okay, let's do the first thing. I want to show you why I always look at the relationship of the two 9th harmonic charts to each other of people that are in romantic relationships or marriage relationships. Okay, I'm in the Series 2.0 software. I've already selected all these charts so we can go through this relatively quickly. Here's Brad Pitt's birth chart. And here is Angelina Jolie's birth chart. Okay, fine. But what I really want to look at is the 9th harmonic chart of both of them. First I look at them individually and then I compare them. So here is Brad Pitt's 9th harmonic chart. Now this wheel is not as pretty as, for example, this wheel that I showed you with the natal chart, but it's very nice for analyzing harmonic charts. So I want to look at Venus in his 9th harmonic chart, and I want to see if there are any large patterns. Oh yes, there are large patterns. There is one in particular. There's this huge grand trine, and it involves Venus. So Venus at 1 degrees Leo, Mars and Uranus at 0 Aries, Neptune at 1 Sag. He has Venus, Mars and Uranus, and Neptune all within 1 degree. This is rather extraordinary. An extremely strong grand trine in the 9th harmonic chart, and also several other planets nearby, so to speak. The Moon at 25 Cancer, the Sun at 22 Scorpio, Saturn at 22 Pisces. So they're a little bit earlier, back about 5 degrees or so before this other grand trine. So all of these planets close to each other. Now, what does Mars-Uranus mean? It's a dynamic energy, impulsive. But when this dynamic, impulsive energy is in 9th harmonic, it's softer. So you can think of Mars and Uranus in 9th harmonic. Here's an image. A fireman. Somebody who's dynamic, responsive, fire starts, got to run to the firehouse or, get in the fire trucks, put it out. protecting the community, taking care of people, bravery, Mars, Uranus, to protect. So a parent or anybody protecting and taking a strong stand and taking fast action, that would be Mars, Uranus. And that Mars, Uranus, trine Venus. We know Venus, Mars can be romantic. Venus, Uranus can be rhythm, music, dance, falling in love suddenly. Venus, Neptune, very romantic. Now, these aspects like Venus, Neptune can lead to illusions in love, disappointments. But in the 9th Harmonic, one of the reasons why the 9th Harmonic is so important is because it tends to be more healing, more soothing. Things tend to work a little more nicely. One of the negative things in a 9th Harmonic is going with the flow, just going with what everybody else wants. But otherwise it tends to be not too hot to handle. So in romance, people often want the excitement of Venus, Uranus, being in love, Venus, Neptune, flowers, candlelight dinners. But, it can get crazy and things don't work out. The illusions, the upsets. But in 9th Harmonic, they tend to work. And that's why the 9th Harmonic is so important in romantic relationships and marriage relationships, because if you get Venus involved in a 9th Harmonic pattern, it can give you the passion, give you the excitement, give you the romance, but it can be long-lasting. It's the ultimate thing. So this is Brad's natal chart, showing that he has the potential for being in a strong, passionate relationship, high romance, high sexuality, and long-lasting, if he marries someone who has planets activating this grand trine. That will be wonderful. So we're going to hope that Angelina Jolie has planets activating his grand trine, and if she does, then we're going to see the potential for a long-lasting relationship. Okay, so that's the idea. Now let's look at Angelina's 9th Harmonic chart. Does she have anything that would be good if Brad activates it in her chart? Do you see anything? We're always interested in Venus. So there's Venus. It's making this, has this red line to Moon. That's a hard aspect known as a sesquiquadrat. So the Moon, Venus, anytime you activate Venus in the 9th Harmonic is good for romance and marriage. And if it activated both Moon and Venus, that could be good. By activate, I mean a planet aspecting both of them. Anything else? I noticed the Sun, Moon, the two lights. The Sun and Moon. So if Brad has planets on this opposition, where her Moon is at 27 Cancer, opposition Sun at 0 Aquarius, that would be wonderful. Okay, so we would like to activate Angelina's Sun-Moon opposition, and we always like to activate Venus. You may see other things like this trine to Pluto. That's actually a trine sextile reinforcing the Sun-Moon opposition. You might notice this red pattern. This is a sesquiquadrat, a square, and a sesquiquadrat. But this is Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn. We really want to emphasize the Venus, also sometimes the Moon, for bonding. There's much more to a marriage than bonding. There's friendship and similar interests and communication skills, lots of things. But the reason why we're interested in the 9th Harmonic is because it can create long-lasting bonding of being in love with each other. And if you don't have that, it's hard to understand why you would be married. That's usually an essential ingredient for most marriages. And that's why we're looking at the 9th Harmonic chart. Okay, so to summarize, we looked at the Navamsa charts of Brad and Angelina. We see a grand trine in Brad's chart. We see a Sun-Moon opposition in Angelina's chart. And we would like to see if they activate each other's charts. So we're going to look at a bi-wheel of the 9th Harmonic charts. I've already selected it. Here it is. So this is Brad in the center. Brad's 9th Harmonic, as it says up here. Brad Pitt, inner ring, 9th Harmonic. Angelina Jolie, outer ring, 9th Harmonic. This is Brad's grand trine, Neptune, the Mars-Uranus, Venus. Here's Angelina's Sun-Moon opposition. And do you notice anything? Any activation between these things we're interested in? Yeah, there's activation. Incredibly, her opposition is right on his grand trine. It doesn't get any better than that. Because the two patterns we want to activate are activating each other. In fact, her moon is right on his moon. His moon at 25 Cancer, hers at 27 Cancer, is right on his moon and his Venus. This is just fantastic. And to give you a better illustration of this, I've saved this and put it in my PowerPoint presentation. I've talked about all this, I talked about all this. Here's the same bi-wheel, but I've, put these little boxes around it to make it clearer. Here's Brad's grand trine, and in the outer ring, there's Angelina's Sun-Moon opposition, and her Sun at 0 Aquarius, very tightly sextile his Mars-Uranus conjunction and sextile his Neptune. So some very exact aspects reinforcing this whole thing. It's just fantastic, because what we want to build this romantic sexual bond is to tie these planets together, and they are tied together. And they've been together, I think, now 11 years or so. And for Hollywood, that's like a lifetime. Often these relationships, last a few years, very rocky. And they seem to have built a stable relationship, a positive relationship, raising kids together, doing social projects together, charity work and progressive enterprises to do good in the world. It seems like they've developed a healthy life amidst the craziness of Hollywood and their celebrity status. How were they able to do that? This is a big reason why. This is really wonderful. This is what you would want to heal and stabilize and make a healthy relationship. And despite all the benefits of being celebrities and being wealthy and everything, there are trade-offs. And to build a good, healthy life can be difficult. And it appears to me they're doing it. It appears to me astrologically they're doing it, and from the news information about what's going on, that they got married and so on, we could see that it happened, and it's not surprising. And if we don't use these ideas of the importance of the 9th Harmonic chart, we would miss all this. Now, let me show you. I'm going to just show you this quickly, because this can get a little bit technical. But this is a compatibility of the birth charts. Here I've got Brad Pitt in the upper right corner. It tells me Brad Pitt natal chart in the inner. In the outer ring is Angelina natal chart in the outer. And if you were doing normal kinds of astrology, you might notice that Brad's Mars at 10 Capricorn is square Angelina's Mars at 10 Aries. That might look like it could lead to a lot of conflict. Mars square Mars. You might notice that Angelina's Sun is square Brad's Pluto. You might expect some power struggles from that as well. It ends up, I think their relationship is more positive than we might have anticipated, based on just what often happens in the lives of people in Hollywood. And what I'm showing here is that in Angelina's birth chart, she has a Sun-Moon sextile. Remember, these are the birth charts. This is Angelina on the outside. She has a Sun-Moon sextile, very strong. And Brad Pitt has almost an exact Mars-Uranus trine. Has only a 2-minute orb. Almost exact. And these lines here are showing the same thing that's in the 9th Harmonic chart comparison. But in the 9th Harmonic chart comparison, it's easy to see. We can see these things as trines and sextiles. This is the comparison of the 9th Harmonic charts. And this is a little technical, but for those of you who are interested in this, this is showing that these aspects actually exist in the natal chart. And that Angelina's sun-moon is actually tying up with the Mars-Uranus trine in Brad's chart. We see all these green lines connecting them, showing them that these are aspects in the 9th harmonic chart, the trines and sextiles, pulling all this together. And there are very interesting other things going on, some symmetric patterns and so on. So anyway, it's interesting sometimes to think about what we're saying. What we're saying is this. We're saying, number one, there is a beautiful and intricate tapestry of energies. And in astrology, when we only use conjunctions, oppositions, squares, trines, sextiles, maybe quincunxes, we're missing this beautiful tapestry, intricate vibrational patterns. They're like beautiful lace, like a beautiful tapestry, a beautiful filigree of how these beautifully subtle and intricate energy patterns interweave together. And we're missing all of it if we don't look at things like the 9th harmonic pattern. And some astrologers are reluctant to accept this idea. You get used to how you do astrology. The idea that there could be this intricate patterns going on might sound a little foreign, a little different. You're not accustomed to it. But my point number 3, as the physicist Richard Feynman said, we only get to find out what Mother Nature is. We don't get to decide what she is. So I really encourage astrologers to open up to this possibility. Select the 9th harmonic chart for you and your spouse or a couple that you're counseling. Do a bi-wheel of those 9th harmonic charts. It is mind-boggling that you can begin to see some of the things that make that relationship work. And if it's not there, as often is the case in relationships that don't work very well. Okay, well that was the main thing I wanted to show you. But I want to go a little bit further in the relationship of Angelina and Brad, in addition to that, to show you some other things going on in their lives and how it affects their relationships. Because this is not the only thing we do in analyzing a relationship. There's more that we do than look at the relationship of the Navamsa charts. One of the things we do is just look at the individual charts. And when we look at the individual charts, we are especially interested in particular harmonics and particular midpoint structures. The 8th harmonic chart is always very important to understand things about the person. So I'm clicking over here to bring up Angelina's 8th harmonic chart. This 8th harmonic chart will show us some of the basic drives and desires and motivations of Angelina. And we see a huge T-square, as we call it. Square, square, and opposition. Means that she has some very powerful drives and motivations. And what are those drives and motivations? Jupiter, Saturn. Very interesting. That's very good for business, for strategy, for seeing a path, for designing things. And that Jupiter, Saturn is tightly squared to Uranus, showing progressiveness. Jupiter, Uranus is enthusiastic. Saturn, Uranus is making changes. So we see a dynamic person making changes, progressive changes, not stuck in the mud, optimistic and willing to step outside the box. Jupiter, Uranus is optimistic. Saturn, Uranus steps outside the box, and her sun's involved. Once the sun is involved, it means it's in your life, can be part of your career. So she's a mover and a shaker, a person who can be a great entrepreneur. And Pluto is involved, making it compulsive. So she's been active, influencing politics, doing things on global scale. She's a powerhouse person who can get a lot done, have great success, innovating and making changes. It's not always easy, because she's an innovator and a person dissatisfied with the status quo. She's compulsive and pushy about it, so it's not easy, but she can do it. And she will continue to do it. I predict she'll continue to do it for the rest of her life, because it's in her chart. Now, one other thing that's interesting about this is she has a Sun, Venus, Uranus, all within 5 degrees. And it's opposition Pluto. Well, Venus, Uranus, we know, is suddenly falling in love. It's like rock music and dance, excitability. Opposition Pluto goes overboard. Sun, it's directly in her life. So we get the concern whenever Venus and Uranus are emphasized of falling in love and then falling out of love, unstable relationships, and we would expect that. She's been able to develop a long-lasting relationship with Brad, a very healthy relationship, because of the 9th Harmonic, but we find out that this is also true, the Sun, Venus, Uranus. I found a website here that talks about it. Here's a particular website. You can just Google this and find other websites. Angelina Jolie reveals some things about her life. There's a picture of her and Brad and some of their kids. I'll just read a little bit of this. The 31-year-old, at the time this was written, Angelina was 31 years old, who is now partnered with Brad Pitt, told the magazine, quote, "I had started having sex with my boyfriend, and the sex and the emotions didn't feel enough. I was no longer a little girl. In a moment of wanting to feel closer to my boyfriend, I grabbed a knife and cut him. He cut me back." So she had started sexual relationship when she was 14 years old. I think they broke up when they were 16 years old. It was intense. It was crazy. That's not surprising with the Sun, Venus, Uranus. She says, "I was a member of a group called the Kissy Girls. I was very sexual in kindergarten. I created a game where I could kiss the boys and give them cooties." Cooties. We had that idea when I was a kid too. Then we would make out and we would take our clothes off, and I got in a lot of trouble. Okay, so there's that Sun, Venus, Uranus, Pluto, the excitability that's there, all the things we expected. And then she develops this relationship with Brad based on the 9th Harmonic, and she's able to become a mom, to become a wife, to become caring, and to stabilize and build a more healthy relationship. So we can see in the astrology the different potentials and how you can steer your life in new directions by building particular relationships with particular people. Okay, and also, by the way, Sun, Venus, Uranus, Pluto is those kind of combinations show up very often in people with star power, people that are sex symbols, which is one of the aspects of her life. It's amazing how much of the person's life is shown in these vibrational patterns. Absolutely amazing. And also we can really feel how the person's life has developed and changed. And we can begin to feel happy for Angelina that she took advantage of her son's sextile moon and the way it connected with Brad Pitt's chart and the things that they've done to build a healthy, positive, caring life that has passion and excitement in a healthier way. It doesn't always happen as you get older. You might just say, well, she got older, she's not a teenager anymore. Well, some people figure it out and some don't, and she did. She was lucky enough, for the most part. I'm not saying her life went from terrible to perfect, but on the whole, it's moved in the right direction, taking advantage of that 9th Harmonic pattern. So you see the different patterns in the person's chart, how they can get expressed, how you can develop them through your relationships and through your decisions that you make in life. Very, very fascinating how we get to see all this astrologically. Now, another aside, let me show you something that I think is very interesting. In harmonic astrology, we always look at the 8th harmonic chart. For relationships, if the relationship is a romantic or marriage relationship, I always look at the connections of the 9th harmonic chart. Some other harmonics I always look at are 5, 7, and 9. And the 7th harmonic, for Brad, is very strong. And I want to show you what I mean by very strong. That, my friends, is strong. You see a whole bunch of aspects. Again, we see a T-square. Square opposition called a T-square. And look at this, Sun, Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, all within 13 degrees. Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, all within about 6 degrees. Opposition, the Moon, Venus. Square, Mars. So you can look at the specific orbs. You'll see that Mars is tightly square Moon. At 10 degrees, very tightly square the Jupiter, Pluto. So the Moon, Mars, Jupiter, Pluto is extremely exact. Saturn strongly involved. What does it mean? Well, 7 is the harmonic of discipline, of introversion. Well, you wouldn't think maybe that a movie star could be disciplined, focused, and introverted, but Brad is. And more specifically, when you see Jupiter and Saturn involved in 7th harmonic, it means the person builds stable structures. Sun, Jupiter, Saturn, 7th, they often deal with the tensions involved, like architects who have to calculate what the stress is on something and make sure that it's stable. They often are very disciplined and sometimes do tricky yoga positions or acrobatics of some kind, not acrobatics, but exercises or movements that require certain tension and discipline. Shows up very often in architecture. And with Moon, Venus involved, maybe something more domestic. So I had the feeling maybe he had an interest in architecture when I looked at this. I thought, no, Brad Pitt, architecture, give me a break. That's almost ridiculous. You never know what other interests people have, but the probability seemed very, very low. I happened to analyze this before I did much research about Brad, and then we find things like this, just, as we say, blew my mind. Architectural Digest. Brad Pitt debuts his first furniture collection. So we have this article about something's not refreshing properly. Let me see if I can refresh this website browser. Maybe I've lost my connection. But anyway, whether I can bring this up or not, the point being that Brad Pitt has been involved in architectural design after the Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans and throughout Louisiana, and ways to rebuild communities and so on. Yeah, I think I've lost my connection to the internet. Doesn't matter. The point I want to make is just simply that he is involved in architecture, and he's got involved in furniture as well, and that appears in these magazines like Architectural Digest. Okay, I got this back up again. Technical difficulty in the middle of my tutorial video. How terrible is that? Okay, well, we managed to get through it. So there's Brad with this furniture designer, and very, very interesting article about by now Pitt's passion for architecture and design is well established, evidenced by his Make It Right foundation. He has an entire foundation for this, which enlists prominent architects to create quality, affordable housing in post-Katrina New Orleans. Wow, this makes me happy. Why does it make me happy? Not only because it's a positive, constructive thing to do for the world, but it's in his chart. And, you know, if you're an astrologer and you see people expressing the potential in their chart, it makes you very happy. Somebody who's made it, you know, he makes lots of money and he's famous and all this stuff. He doesn't have to continue to grow and develop, but he does. He's taking what is in his energy field and really expressing and developing it, and that is really wonderful, and doing constructive things with it. So anyway, I was dumbfounded. Astrology never ceases to amaze me. When I saw this pattern, I thought architecture and found out that it is actually a big part of his life, and I'm really thrilled that it is. I'm thrilled for him, and I'm thrilled for the contribution that he's making to the world. Okay, so anyway, just interesting additional things, because these are all important for relationships. Because if people can't express themselves, if Angelina for some reason inhibits or doesn't encourage or doesn't appreciate what he's doing with architectural design and so on, that's not good, because you have to be yourself, and there's more to yourself than what's in the relationship. That's the point I wanted to make. So Brad has this architecture thing, and what Angelina can do, I can look at her 7th harmonic chart, see if it connects with his. If it does, they may work together. If it doesn't, then they may not work together. Either way is fine. They've got a wonderful 9th harmonic pattern to give them the potential to have a wonderful marriage. And regardless of whether she connects with that or not, she can appreciate it, support it, and understand, see who you're married to, see your friends, see your family, see your loved ones, to see who they are, and to see that part of Brad and encourage it and appreciate it, just like as we astrologers would, who use vibrational astrology, we can appreciate it. Okay, now, here's another thing I looked at. If people are artists, like they're painters, for example, I often look at their 5th harmonic charts, because 5th harmonic often gets related to things like, to arts, creative areas. If people are actors, I look at their 17th harmonic charts, because very often we will see strong patterns in the 17th harmonic charts. So I will look at harmonics that are related to things people do if I haven't noticed it already. So whenever I do the charts of actors and actresses, I look at the 17th harmonic. Also people that are counselors, people that empathize, who can step into the shoes of other people. And that's part of the talent of being a great actor or actress, is that you can step into the shoes of other people. So, let's look at Brad's 17th harmonic chart, which is here, Brad Pitt's 17th harmonic chart. We don't see any obvious aspects, but if you've been watching some of the other tutorial videos on harmonic charts, you may know that we also look at midpoints. And his Mercury is directly at the Sun-Jupiter midpoint and the Jupiter-Uranus midpoint, because he has a strong Sun-Uranus conjunction, and Mercury is right in between both of them. In the 17th harmonic, this means a facility, a quickness, an ease to imitate, to flow into something. So he can just spontaneously imitate, flow into a new character, feel a new situation. Very fluid, because it's Uranian. If we look at the midpoints to Mercury, click on this midpoints, we've got Mercury at Sun-Jupiter, 26-minute orb. At Jupiter-Uranus, 19-minute orb. Both under half a degree. When they're under half a degree, they're extremely strong. So that's some of, you might say, Brad Pitt's knack, his little trick, his little ability to be a great actor. And we see that there's a lot more to Brad Pitt. We see his 7th harmonic pattern very strong. Needs to be a big part of his life, and he's making it a big part of his life, which is really wonderful, because sometimes people just sort of stop. They sort of retire from life, even if they're 30 or 40 years old. They just don't develop sides of themselves that they feel. He feels that 7th harmonic, and he's doing it, which is wonderful. And this is part of his acting ability. And when we look at Angelina Jolie's 17th harmonic chart, we see a more obvious aspect pattern of Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, and Neptune. That means appreciating different characters, the storyline, the development of the plot, just typical actor tendency. We have a Jupiter, Neptune, Pluto, looking to new levels, inspirations, fantasies, and reaching beyond, and Venus, Jupiter, Saturn design, the costumes, the arrangements, everything about the set and everything. She's very sensitive to all that, has a lot of expertise in acting and the whole context of acting. She probably took acting lessons. She really knows what she's doing. So we see that. So I thought that was interesting. And then I thought for fun I would look at the compatibility of their 17th harmonic charts. So I did a bi-wheel where I put Angelina's 17th harmonic in the center. She's got that Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, T-square thing. And then Brad has that Mercury at Jupiter, Sun, and Jupiter, Uranus. And see if there were any interactions. and look at them all. It's mind-boggling. They have connections, big, huge connections. For example, Brad's moon at 28 Capricorn, right on her Angelina's Pluto. Well, actually, it's closer to the Jupiter-Neptune. Right on the Jupiter-Neptune, 8 degrees from Pluto. So it's on the Jupiter-Neptune, exactly square Venus. So it's right in that whole big T-square. So his moon is there. This is quite interesting. Angelina's sun is on Brad's Jupiter with a 1-degree orb. Her Mars is on his Mercury with a 1-degree orb. And notice that those are 2 of the 3 planets, the Jupiter, Mercury, and the Sun, Uranus, in Brad's acting pattern. So Angelina is activating 2 of these 3 points with conjunctions. Sun on his Jupiter, Mars on his Mercury, Brad's moon is on her T-square. We know that they have chemistry for acting together, for feeling each other. They both have this talent to flow into the personality and the lifestyle and the feelings of other people, and they can do that with each other. So what an acting combo they could be. And I've also saved this to file and illustrated it a little bit more and put it in the PowerPoint presentation to show it to you. So there's that T-square. There's Brad's moon on the T-square. And I put in purple that this is Angelina in the center. Her sun on his Jupiter, her Mars on her Mercury. She also has Sun square Mars, so her Mars is coming in as well on this Jupiter. So really wonderful things. And then if you start to look at it closer, you might notice this. Brad's Venus, remember this is Brad Pitt, outer ring, 17th Harmonic. His Venus at 8 Aquarius, 59, almost 9 Aquarius, is right on her Uranus. Isn't that interesting? His Venus, a Venus-Uranus, often leads that spontaneous falling in love, and then they can fall out of love. In the 17th Harmonic, now this is mind-boggling, his Venus on her Uranus, and her Venus on his Uranus, both ways, because this is 7 degrees, and we allow 16 degrees. In synastry, I only like up to about 8 degrees. So, this Venus is at 28, 21, and it's about 7 degrees. It's weak. A weak Venus-Uranus, but then another one that's very strong. Well, I saw all these connections in the 17th Harmonic. I said, great acting combination. Some Venus-Uranus spark, mainly this one. I said they probably fell in love acting together, because that would be, I mean, they're both actors, they're both very famous, good chance they got in a script together, you know, they both had a role together, and they fell in love, and it started through acting. You know, just a strong possibility of that. And that would be possibly a strong possibility anyway. It ended up being true. Because I take a kind of skeptical scientific approach, I don't consider that mind-boggling, but it is what I expected. And so when I did the research on it, this is a story about the history of their relationship. Of course, you have to be always a little skeptical because they're celebrities and people just write crazy things about celebrities, but this seems to be fairly well established. Brad and Angelina met. According to Angelina, fell in love while filming Mr. and Mrs. Smith in 2004. Now it's 2015. I'm making this in July, late July 2015, and they got married, I think, a few years ago. So the relationship really stayed. But I figured that, and what an acting duo they can be. They might, if they're still both actively in the acting mode, some director, manager of whoever selects these things might consider putting them together in a film again, because they've got the chemistry for acting together especially with her sun on his Jupiter, her Mars on his Mercury, 2 of the 3 power points of his acting ability and his moon right on her pattern. The Venus-Uranus, great for a love story between the two of them. Anyway, I thought that was quite interesting just to see that, given that they're both in the acting profession. So sometimes when I'm doing compatibility, if the people are athletes, if they're actors, if they have something in common and they're a team in some way, I'm going to get very interested in looking at the harmonics that are often related to that particular interest. Okay. Notice this. This is really interesting. Okay, this is Angelina in the center. Her Saturn, 25 Aries 35 in the 17th harmonic chart. Brad's Saturn in the 17th harmonic chart, 25 Aries 27. It's this, what is that? An 8-minute orb. Which in harmonic charts is incredibly exact. Saturn to Saturn. It's almost eerie when you get the Saturn lined up perfectly in the harmonic that's related to their acting. What do you think that means? Well, actually, it might sound ominous because we think of Saturn as the great malefic and some big karmic thing. Well, I think it is karmic, but you'll often see the same planet to same planet. I mentioned that earlier on. You'll see, like we saw moon to moon in the 9th harmonic, which is fantastic. Well, when you get Saturn to Saturn, it does have a karmic feeling, but it's not necessarily bad. Something very deep, very real, very important. So they can relate to each other in terms of acting and theater. That whole industry also it extends beyond that. The whole process of empathizing, understanding the stories of other people, because if you think about acting, that's a lot of what it's about. Stories that engage us in a slice of life that we're not currently engaged in. It brings a seriousness to it, something real, something important. So they're acting together, and their pursuits tend to be less frivolous, trying to do something of dramatic importance to bring home a deeper message to each other. And their lives have taken on a tone, I think, of facing things that are more important, more lasting. Saturn really, in the long run, can be a benefic, believe it or not, because it strips away the nonsense and gets you down to what's really important. And that can be a difficult process, but it's a positive process. So this tells me that there's some real deep connection, as if in past lives they had been acting together or teaching each other or something. Anyway, there's levels of astrology that get rather mysterious and always sometimes a little difficult to pinpoint what the behavior is, and this is one of them, that exact Saturn connection. Something really important is going on, even deeper than we can probably even verbalize. And that's a positive note for them staying together. They're probably developing some. I think they're going to continue to make very important contributions in a lot of different ways. The longer they stay married, is one conclusion that I get from that. Okay, let me see if I've got anything else here in my PowerPoint. I think that's pretty much it. That's it. So final conclusions. In this video, what I've tried to do is illustrate some ideas. I tried to illustrate the importance of looking at the 9th harmonic chart in a romantic relationship or a marriage relationship. The principles that I'm using, the concepts that I'm using in this video are used in other videos and in some more rigorous and controlled research studies, where we've done controlled research studies, extreme case sampling studies, the study on gold prices, etc., where we've used these concepts in vibrational astrology and gotten very positive results. What I'm showing you here is not a rigorous, controlled study. It's more of an illustration of the concepts to show how they work and how they can be useful in consultations. In vibrational astrology, we have you might say a more scientific or skeptical approach to what we're doing, where we like to continue to question and doubt everything and test it very thoroughly in numerous ways. So if you're somewhat cynical of astrology, or you believe in astrology and are cynical of vibrational astrology and believe in other kinds of astrology, you may continue to be after this video. I'm not trying in this video to demonstrate the ideas definitely work. I'm trying to show how they can be useful in real situations at looking at actual people's charts and to illustrate the ideas. So in vibrational astrology, I use this idea that we're building models. We're building models that show huge promise, fantastic promise. We see it over and over again in controlled studies, in example charts. I've got many other examples of famous people. I can show the relationships. So many tutorial videos I want to make to show the research being done and various applications and examples and illustrations like we did in this class. And I think you can really provide helpful information. So if you had Brad and Angelina as clients, I think using these methods, you could provide them some really helpful and useful information. And last thing I want to emphasize, I think astrologers would benefit by using the so-called minor aspects, such as the aspects that are shown in the 9th Harmonic chart and other harmonics as we showed in this tutorial video. That's it, my friends. I hope that was interesting and informative and hopefully maybe even inspiring. Take care. God bless. Namaste.